I love femme rage literature. Like, where women are losing their mind a little bit, because how do we not, with the way that patriarchy, the way that we're impacted by society itself. I mean, that's what I like to see, is just someone really lose their shit. So that is what I love about this book.
Welcome, friends, to episode 357 of the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book and then see the movie. I'm writer Luke Elliott.
And I'm filmmaker James Bailey.
And this week we discuss Rachel Yoder's 2021 novel, Nightbitch. And joining us on the hunt this week is Shayna Hodge, the founder and leader of the Parallel Worlds Bookshop Book Club, located here in Portland, Oregon. They are a passionate advocate for creating inclusive spaces and amplifying stories by marginalized authors. Their boundless enthusiasm for fiction is a key factor in what has made the book club so successful. Welcome to the show, Shayna.
Thanks so much, y'all. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to talk about this book with you.
Very excited. But I got to talk a little bit about Parallel Worlds first, since we have you here. The book club that I am a part of. I joined it it's been a couple of years now, back when The Lathe of Heaven was the project, I believe, being discussed.
Yeah.
My wife, Annalisa, had already joined, and she had been, singing its praises, but she was like, we're covering one that's been adapted that we haven't done yet. So it was a good entry point for me. I'd been wanting to read more books outside of the podcast and kind of keep up with, especially like newer books, which is funny because that wasn't a new book, but I also have enjoyed reading some other newer fiction. So it was great, and I, made an impression on me. Definitely have enjoyed it, and I wish I made it out to more of them than I'm able to, but I've definitely liked being a part of it, and I'm excited to have you on.
Like I said, I'm so excited to be here. It's grown in a lot of different ways. Like, Annalisa's part of like the knitting part of the book club. There's all these like sub communities that have kind of developed, and it's really been such a joy to watch it grow.
It's been so fun meeting people through that. Like, a lot of my friend group now was formed through the book club. So it's really like a social nexus that you formed here. And I want to hear about that story, like going back to, I think you said 2022 is when you started it. And this is all a volunteer thing, right? Like, I know you seems like you work at the bookstore, but I don't think the book club is like official position you have, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I work, going back in time, the bookstore opened April 2022. And I had fallen into Parallel Worlds like day 2 of Sam opening the store, and the shelves were kind of like not that full, and there was some like smutty romantasy in the YA section. I was like, the youths can't read this. Like, this is in the wrong place. I was like, this has gotta go. And I like told Sam, I was like, I work at Nike, but I would love to like help you like in any way. I love sci-fi fantasy. It's definitely a genre that I uncovered a passion for during COVID when we were all sequestered to our homes. And at first he was like, who is this person that's just moving my stuff around? He's like, what? And I just kept dropping in and hanging out. And eventually he was like, okay, you can work once a month. You're here all the time anyway. And so I started out with, it was like in trade for books. I would work like one Sunday a month. And then it kind of grew from there. About a year in, I had been noodling the idea of about starting a book club, and I was really scared. I was like, I'm sure you guys felt this when you started your podcast. Who wants to listen to me talk about what do I know about anything, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I still feel that way, but yeah.
Trust me, I've got book club on Thursday and I feel that way. I'm like, who's going to listen to me? What do I have to say? And I was like, okay, all I have to do is read the book, similar to you guys, and show up and talk about it and see who's there to talk about it. So after like a year of fear and ruminating, I was like, okay, I'm putting a sign-up sheet up at the store to see if there's interest for a general sci-fi fantasy book club that is focused on underrepresented authors and underrepresented communities that are published, right, in publishing. So we're not reading the Asimovs, we're not reading Tolkien, no matter how important they are. That's not the focus. You weren't there for the first one, but the first one was was in Parallel Worlds, and there was like 7 of us. And the first 3 or 4, I think, were in Parallel Worlds. And you'll have to come when you're in town, but it's a really tiny space. And so after like the 5th or 6th meeting, we kind of outgrew the space immediately. So we moved to Dream House, which is a bar that is also a good friend of ours, that's near Parallel Worlds. But then we eventually grew out of that space. And so now we're renting space at the Kennedy School. And we get on average about 20 to 35 people, depending on what the book is. We've also expanded into multiple book clubs. We have a horror book club, a romantasy book club. And we also have authors that join us at our book club, which is very exciting. The first one being, thanks to you, Luke, which was Fonda Lee, which was fantastic. Also, my first time meeting someone like pseudo-famous, so terrifying.
I would say fully famous.
Yes, exactly. I know. I was like, she's like
just becoming
famous.
more and more famous as we speak, right? Seems like.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So edit that part out. Very famous. Very, very famous. But so authors at this point are like reaching out, asking to like join book club, and we have like a little bit of a unique model where we'll meet and we'll have the author doesn't join for like the first hour. So the first hour is truly book club discussion with the community within the book club. And then the remaining hour, the author comes in and we get to ask the author questions about their book. And I also want to share this update. You guys are the first that I'm sharing this
Breaking
with.
news.
Oh, yeah.
Breaking
Hot
news.
scoop here, yeah.
Hot scoop. I texted Sam to make sure I could share this.
Okay.
We just signed today the lease for the space next door. So we're going to be expanding and be like 3 times the size of the space.
That's amazing.
Very
Congrats.
exciting. Thanks.
That's
awesome.
very exciting. It is a very small store
So
for having such a
small.
big book club.
Yes. So now
so I'm
because of
glad to
the
hear that.
space, we're building it so that we can have all of our events in the bookstore. So very exciting.
That's really cool.
How do you handle 300 people in a single book club? I know it's now branched into so many different ways, but like how does that work? 'Cause
It's
you're
around
kind of
300 people on the Discord last I looked.
I
yeah.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. On
Luckily,
average,
they
we have
don't all
about-
show up to everything. Right.
Thank God. Yeah. Well, we have like so we have a volunteer planning committee that helps like plan different major milestones and events around like reunions, anniversary parties for the book club, 2-year, 1-year anniversary birthdays for the book clubs. Our author events, they also volunteer and help out. So we have this like small planning committee. Then we have other people who kind of like volunteer to like lead something. Like we have our mutual friend Jake, who leads the Locked Tomb series. He raised his hand and he said, "This is a huge following. I'd love to lead this discussion and I can carry it on multiple months." So we have that. And we also have a remarkable, and I cannot speak more highly about them. We have an amazing Discord moderator who isn't only just the moderator, but helps me with all things operations, even like brainstorming. So huge shout out to B. They are just like, I couldn't do half of this without their support and just being there when I'm like peak scared. Yeah. Are we sure we're going to do this? Like we couldn't be where we're at 3 years in almost without them.
Yeah, shout out to them because I feel like being a moderator on a large Discord is a thankless job.
Oh my God, I know.
It's amazing that anyone is willing to do that, and I feel like they do it really well, so yeah.
They do. And I think the last thing I'll say is, so Luke, I'm not sure if you and Annalisa were here for this one, but we had a little bit of like, it was a changing of winds for me because it was the genesis of misery. Were you there for that conversation?
I wasn't there for it, but I've heard about it.
Heard about it.
I've heard a lot about it.
We don't talk about that one. We didn't have any ground rules. We didn't have any like guiding light of like, how do we show up, have discussion with each other and disagree with each other? And I also have no experience with any of this. And so that discussion was really interesting because a lot of people came with really strong opinions, and it kind of turned into like a Reddit feed of just disdain and dislike, just dog pile. And what happens, though, is if you don't like something, that's totally okay. You can be like, that didn't land for me. When you start really making, like, comments about the content and the author and the characters, now what's happening is there's people who enjoyed it who aren't going to speak up anymore. You know what I mean? So from that moment, I was like, okay, we need ground rules. And one of our number one ground rule is we do not yuck people's yums. We treat people with kindness, and we treat authors with kindness because they're doing things. I'm not a writer. Like I couldn't do what they do. And so even if you didn't like it, that's totally okay. But we're going to treat the people and our authors with the respect they deserve. And so I think that is like one of the biggest successes of the Discord in general, is it feels like we're really in community with these people, and everyone respects each other.
Yeah, I agree. I know Fonda had a fantastic time coming to talk, and you had Caitlin Starling, I think a couple times now, who was a former guest of ours. She's great. So I think you are definitely succeeding in being a welcoming space for the authors, and then also just the people there. Like, it's a tough, it's a balancing act, right? Because you want to encourage people to be able to speak their minds and bring up criticisms if they have them. But it's all kind of sometimes about like the way it's said and making sure you're leaving space for people who have differing opinions and, not dominating the conversation. So it's a fine line. It's a tough thing to do. And, hats off to you for doing this all as a volunteer. Like, why do you think you like put so much time and effort into this when you're not getting monetary gain, which is a gross thing to say, but I'm just curious, like what keeps you at it? What keeps you doing it?
I mean, It all happened very serendipitously within the timing, because I moved to Portland in 2019 and then COVID happened, like end of 2019 for Nike. And then COVID happened and I didn't have any friends here or community. And so I was like sequestered to my home reading a lot, right? And then once things started opening again, whether that was right or wrong, like I feel like Portland, and I'm sure many other places, were like primed for community and like yearning for connection. And so like my drive is around like seeing these people be brought together for a similar thing, which is reading. Also, like I have autism, and it's kind of hard to just like go to a bar and like hang out. Like I like to have a topic. Like today we have Nightbitch. But at different book clubs, we've got like, there's a purpose and there's a reason and there's an order to it. And I think that brings a lot of comfort to a lot of different people. And so that is what brings me to do this for as long as I've been doing it.
Very cool. I love it.
Yeah.
And if I'm in town at the right time, I'd love to stop by for a book club and be involved in
We
that.
haven't
Sounds
done
like you guys have
Nightbitch
made
yet.
a really cool space.
By the way, this seems like this could be a good one for the book club. I don't know, would it qualify as a horror book? I don't know. It's like, that's a discussion we can have maybe. What genre is this book?
That is a good question.
It would maybe be horror, if anything. But
maybe.
It's even debatable if you could even call it that.
Literary fiction is so interesting because it
really
teeters
literary.
on that it teeters on that line. There's some literary lit
Magical
fic that
realism.
you're like, exactly, where you're like, oh, this could go to fantasy or this could go to horror. Nightbitch is a particular one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious what Luke tells me that you recommended this and wanted to cover it on the podcast. What drew you to this project? What was the reason for that?
I think about this book a lot. Like, I think about it quite often, and then when the movie came out, and I remember I just thought and sat with it for so long, where I was like, the differences between the film and the book, and like why those changes were made, and why certain stuff was left out. Like, I'll just like be drinking my coffee in the morning and be like, why'd they leave that out? So that's the reason
I'm excited to find
why.
out what that particular detail is, because I haven't seen the movie yet. I don't think James has yet either. So
I haven't, no.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what they omit.
And I haven't seen it since it came out, and I saw it in theater when it first came out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
you read the book first then, though? Sounds
yeah, I read it first. It was like trending on TikTok, one of those.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, and that's a good segue into, you are going to be joining us for not only the book coverage here today, but also next week for the film. So I'm excited to get that full coverage with Shayna here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the way to do it. So thank you for being willing to do the complete coverage with us.
Of course.
So let's talk general thoughts first here. We'll keep our spoilers for after the bio. So we'll give a spoiler warning for people who haven't read the book, but if you were talking about this book to somebody who hasn't read it before, how would you talk about it? Like, what would you say your reaction to reading it was? Let's start with James.
First off, I would say excellently written. Like, I just had a great time with especially with how some of the grotesque nature, it's a perceived grotesque nature. It's like it depends on who you're asking, but I think there's like there's so much of the book that was so like evocative of what it was it can be like to be a mother and to be dealing with a lot of these different things. So for myself, obviously, I like these kinds of stories that are able to show me another perspective and like just a peek into somebody else's life. I always find that to be like really enriching and like helps me have empathy for people in many different walks of life. So I really appreciate it for those reasons. And one of the major things I'm struck with is like, I think this should be required reading for anyone considering having children. I think that's my biggest takeaway, is especially the person that may be leaving to work with someone staying home and like having it be like because again, it's so visceral. A lot of these scenes are so like, I've never been in like a sterile sort of like pumping environment, and how like the machines are pulling this biological fluid out of you, and how like, I don't know, alien that can feel in a lot of ways, and like how like isolating this whole experience seems. And my general thoughts are, I was blown away with the perspective that I gleaned from this, and just how much fun the author seemed to be having with such a serious and difficult situation and topic to like grapple with, something that in some ways, because of society, has been tabooed and like, I don't know, it's like a lot of this is like behind closed doors, things that maybe families are going through, or women are going through, or people in general who have children are going through.
All right, so Shayna, what did you think? Yeah, this is your second or third time reading this. Where are you at with it?
This is my second time reading it. Yeah, I read it when it first came out. The cover alone was evocative enough for me. I was like, a lot of the ways that it was talked about is what there it is, there she is. Also, there's like a English cover, a European cover that's also very good.
I need to see that. I tend to like the English covers more.
Same. I know, what?
Yeah.
But I love femme rage literature, like where women are losing their mind a little bit, because how do we not, with the way that patriarchy, the way that we're impacted by society itself. I mean, that's what I like to see, is just someone really lose their shit. So that is what I love about this book. I think something that comes up for me, like if I were to like put this book into buckets of themes, I would say obviously motherhood, rage, like feminine rage, patriarchy, transformation, like pre and post motherhood. Identity is also plugged into that. And something that comes up for me the most is labor. Like the labor of motherhood, whether it's psychological or the duties that you have at home, and how you balance that is one of my biggest takeaways. And I think I love what you said, James. It should be required reading for all, because I think that there's the way that she writes about her experience at home with her partner and with the child and what's happening mentally is so visceral and so real. I think even without the element of having a child, those things come up because of how we structure society around feminine and masculine roles, right? And I think going into this, I was a little nervous the first time I read it, because I'm trans, I'm they, them. I don't have this like need or drive to reproduce or have a child. So I was like, do I really want to read fiction, like lit fic around motherhood? Like, it's probably not going to land for me. And I'm shocked how much I think about it and how much it does land for me, regardless of the fact that it is centered around motherhood, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny because it kind of mirrors some of my thoughts on this book when I heard about it, because it seems like a book that I would like. But my misgivings around it weren't around the feminine rage, the insight into motherhood. I was a little bit more worried about, like, are the other characters going to be sort of what we've seen before, kind of flat, terrible men who are just, mouthpieces for the patriarchy. And I actually really enjoyed the husband character for his role in the story, in the sense that he absolutely is the vehicle which a lot of the patriarchy is imposing its will upon the mother, but also like, and she repeatedly says he's a good man, and he's not a terrible guy. He's kind of clueless, I would argue, in many ways, but repeatedly he would surprise me in not doing the more expected thing and like actually having some understanding for what's going on. And I think a lot of that comes from Rachel Yoder, like actually being in a loving relationship, it seems like, and she was touching on a lot of what she went through when she had her son. And specifically, even the name Nightbitch comes from like a joke between her and her husband. So I think a lot of this ties to her real life. This is very, I think, personal for her, which I think you can immediately tell as you're reading this. This is probably quite personal to the author. But yeah, I mean, coming back to everything you've been saying, I agree. Like, I loved this insight into motherhood because I think we're all of an age where, at the very least, the idea of parenthood has entered into our minds, and the question of whether or not we want to engage with it. We're child-free by choice. James used to maybe open to having kids one day. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Ask me in 5 years, and then I'll say 5 more years.
So it's something we thought about. I've had discussions with Annalisa about it, and of course, this is the side of it that I don't have direct experience with, and I wouldn't have direct experience with. Of course, being a parent, yes, then that is a big part of this book, right? I think men can read this and learn about what it might be like to be a parent for them as well. I think that is definitely true, and some of the difficulties they could face. But this is specifically focused on motherhood, I think. And it was really interesting to read about that because, of course, that's not something that I am directly worrying about as much. But it gave me insight into what I should be considering asking a partner to go through if we were to go through the process of having a child. So very interesting book. I loved reading it. It gave me a lot to chew on. This is a very literary novel. We talked about it genre, I think, early on, how would we define it? This reminds me of the kind of stuff I read a lot in my undergrad when I was studying lit fic. I've seen this described as body horror. I've seen it described as magical realism. I think there's touches of that, but I think people are really struggling to define it. Which I think is understandable because at its heart, you have a character who's going through a almost werewolf-like transformation, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I think that maybe is where really we get into that lit fic space of is it really happening or not? And even if it is really happening, it's not in a way that you would expect from a werewolf story. This is a very different kind of transformation that we're seeing, and specifically not werewolf, were-dog. This is very specifically about dogs. Which is a whole thing I want to talk about because I find dogs fascinating. I've been a dog person my whole life. I have multiple dogs. I love dogs. And there's something about a dog's existence that I think is profound. And I love the sort of, I always look at my dogs and think if I could just live in the moment like them, there's something that joyous about their experience. And I feel like that was at the heart of this book too, of there's something kind of freeing and animal, there's an animal joy you can embrace, and we see our mother, the main character, doing that. But at the same time, there's some other aspects of being an animal that it gets explored, and I love that she doesn't shy away from that stuff too.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the father a little bit now that you mention it, the husband. Yeah. I found the character. So you said I kind of hated this character. I kind of grew to hate this character for sure.
At times I definitely do. I think I was just I was kind of surprised at times when he wasn't completely terrible.
I just kept noticing that there was a privilege through apathy that was happening with the character, where it was this is just how things are, and that was the sort of messaging throughout. And then through relationships, romantic or not, I think they change as time goes on, and evolving with people and finding them where they are, I think is a big deal. And he just seemed like he was not interested in doing that. So I just grew to be this guy, I don't know. This guy.
That's fair. I'm thinking about some stuff that happens at the end, which we will have to circle back to. But
I know. Yeah.
Shayna, you had a question?
I was going to say, for me, reading his character, he is, for the most part, most men, is this obliviousness and acceptance of how things are. You've got, do you know what I mean? There's a normalcy of him that is very irritating. So does your dislike come from potentially your relatability to him? Maybe that's not who you are anymore, but I feel we all start at this place of I was socialized to be a certain way, and then you kind of explore outside of that, right? And you decolonize in a lot of ways. To me, he is the standard. He got a job, he goes to work, his wife had a kid, and he continues to go to work, and that's the distribution of labor. You know what I mean? He is the line of normalcy.
Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think I think enough and fear enough that I could become someone like that. Maybe that's what you're getting at is I hope that that's not who I am. And I work to not be that person. And that's I think what I might be bouncing off of a lot with that character. Mm.
Yeah. And I feel I came out I was a big fan of him. I'm not, but I was pleasantly surprised by his characterization, because the things we don't like about him are what you're saying, Shayna. Like, it's the common stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not like if he was abusive, if he was like very obviously a villain, the story would become about like her besting her terrible husband. But instead it's like, no, this guy's a solid guy. He's decent. And yet there's so much conflict.
He's mid.
He's mid
at best.
He's mid guy. Although
Mid
again,
guy.
I want to circle back to this at the end, because I feel like he comes around a little bit, so we can talk about that. But
I also wanted to say, like, I thought a lot about my friends and family, people really close to me that are parents or new parents, and how this story could be, and I was thinking about recommending it to a few people, could be a comfort in some ways to like some of the things that they feel like they may be being irrational about, or the, like, fears that they have, and I just like was thinking a lot about some of my close friends and who have young children, and that their whole dynamics and the situations that they find themselves in. I was like, this I think I would respond well to that, and knowing that it's not a unique experience, that a lot of people kind of deal with some of this.
So how did you find the connection to the mother, Shayna? Since, like you said, you're not a mother, but like you obviously connected with this character.
It's kind of like what James was saying, actually. So, like, at work, there's a lot of women who are older than me on my team who have kids and things like that, and we'll get these lunches together, and there's, like, a group of us. And I'll hear them talk about their husbands and their kids and the distribution. You're going to hear me talk over and over about labor. Because an example I can give is a very close coworker of mine was talking about how for the last 10 years of their marriage, she is the person who, if they're invited to a party and there's a gift that's needed, she is the one who goes out, gets the gift, gets the card, makes sure it's there, and then they go. That's all labor. And so every time, like, let's say the husband, it's like she's out of town for work and he has to go to that event. He's like, where do I get the card and the present? It's his first time on the planet.
Yeah.
He's never gone to CVS before. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so I hear my coworkers talking about this division of labor and how like this comes up. And so when I read the book, I was like, this is somehow a spark of almost like every woman's experience in a book. Where the woman goes crazy, obviously, in a way, or like liberates herself in a way. But this is like a sample size of what so many women feel in their partnerships when it comes to labor at home and how they communicate with their partners. And so that's kind of why I connected to it. It was like all of these conversations happening at this time. And then reading this, it was like the perfect time for it to land for me.
Yeah, I definitely connected with all of that. I found it very interesting. Definitely, the way like society reinforces these roles for us in ways we don't maybe even understand it, or realize that we're falling into patterns because these are the patterns of our parents, right? There's a little bit of generational stuff going on here, right? And the patterns that we see around us in society and how everybody's doing it a certain way, and so it becomes the norm. That all is analyzed, I think, brilliantly in this book, and it's kind of what I expected from the book. Some of the stuff that I really enjoyed that I didn't expect was, I thought Rachel Yoder speaking to me through the character a little bit about the urge to find like actualization, like to find purpose in your life beyond just the mundane. And she is struggling with this role as a mother, and she is providing all this stuff to her son, and I would say also to the husband in a sense, and taking it off of his plate. But like so much is being given to her son, and then she starts to feel like I used to be an artist. I used to want to do all these great things. And then I think there's a line in the book where she says like dogs don't create art. So there's an interesting dynamic here of like embracing a natural self who is happy in the moment, and yet I can look at my dogs and go, oh, they're so happy, I want to be like them. But they're not writing books. I want to write books. So there's two parts of me, right? There's parts of me that wants to be like that and be happy, but there's another part of me that does want to engage in something bigger and grander. And so the way that she is in both embracing that animalistic side of herself, but finding ways to still pursue like a greater purpose in her life, I thought was really profound, and it was something I wasn't expecting in the book. And I really like that. That's where I think the book kind of leads us as we approach the end, and leaves us with like a lasting thought about that.
I think one thing I want to add to that, the word that I want to add is the sacrifice that she's made, right? Like she's made such a sacrifice because she she had a career before, and then she attempted to continue her career on, and the balance just wasn't there, right? And so she made a sacrifice at the cost of like something she really wanted. And I feel like there are so many people that experience that, whether it's through motherhood or partnership or jobs, careers, etc. And so I think one huge element of her experience that's so relatable is the sacrifice.
Yeah. So my mother was a stay-at-home mom by choice, and she was in a very similar situation to the mother in this book. My father's an engineer, and a lot of the sort of child upbringing fell to her. And she loved being a mom. Like, she would talk about how much she loved it. But I also know that she went to school for journalism, but she did always want to be an author as well. And it was something she never ended up being able to explore. And she had, I think, saved it for at a time when she was going to be like, when all of her kids were going to be grown. She was like, I'm going to return to this. But she ended up passing away before she got a chance to do that. So reading this book, I think, was also profound in that sense of like making me think about her. And like, she always seemed very happy with her choices, but there was a sacrifice there. And it's something that, you know, you think you might be able to do, right? And you can just put it off, but none of us get guaranteed that we're going to get the chance to return to something like that.
I also thought it was interesting the line that was drawn. Well, who drew the line where? Like our main character, the mother, which again, I want to talk about that it's such a brilliant move to have the main character just be named Mother or Nightbitch the
mother,
entire
yeah. And
story.
then at some point
like,
becomes Nightbitch, yeah.
Right. And like how that like removes the character from us in a way, and like in the way that the society is kind of like pushing her to the peripheral a little bit. I don't know, that keeps it, not knowing her name is, I don't know, I find to be really profound.
And specifically, I don't think we know her name. We don't know the husband's name. We don't know a lot of, I think the son is even just the son. Like, we don't know hardly anyone's name. And that is by design. I heard Rachel Yoder talk about that.
Yes.
It was, she was sort of inspired by, I think, some mythology she had been reading, or like even the Bible. Of course, you do have Adam and Eve's name, but she was talking about specifically about Adam and Eve and how you don't know anything about them. They're just kind of like figures that you follow. And I guess she wanted this to feel a little bit that way too, kind of mythical in that sense.
I remember the first time that I read it, I paused and I was like, the son has to have a name. Like, this is her pride and joy. It's everything she sacrificed for. And I remember going back through being like, is it? Nameless. They're all nameless.
The whole family's nameless, yeah.
Yes, except the very first paragraph that I've heard her reference in all of her interviews. In the first sentence, she mentions Nightbitch.
Oh, right. Yeah. The name Nightbitch, in which, she kind of sets up that this is somewhere we're going. And then eventually we do get the exploration of that. And then I think at that point, she basically gets referred to as Nightbitch. Maybe the mother comes in some too, but she just starts being called that. We're starting to get a little bit into the depth of this book. So let's, I think, pause.
I do want to finish my thought about the line that some characters are drawing. So like our main character, Mother or Nightbitch, is her line was when someone was watching her child, she didn't feel like the child was being attended to enough. So she was like, that was her breaking point. She was like, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to take care of my child. And other mothers are choosing to like allow for daycare, and other mothers, like there's just like a different line for each person to find if they're able to do both things at the same time. So you were talking about like that self-actualization, like putting things off, like it's like each person is going to have a different like perspective on it, and whether they feel like, because ultimately I don't think this character sees it as putting it off, because she keeps trying to find these windows, but the lack of sleep and just the overall like overstimulation is not conducive to being very creative. But still, through the course of the story, we find that kind of getting back to her base instincts in a sense, or we can talk about kind of what that is, but in getting back there, she's able to, and in my opinion, my interpretation is that there's some way to do both, depending on the person, depending on if that's where their line is.
Yeah, I love that.
And what's crazy is that the line exists like for everyone, right? Like the fact that we, under like the current way that we all live under capitalism, like we will always have to choose. Like it will never be easy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's dark.
Totally.
It is dark and totally true. Yeah.
That did remind me. So I want to actually read a little passage from the book here, because I think when we talk about literary novels, I think people who might follow us for our genre coverage might be a little bit off put by that term. Like, what's that going to be like? Is that even something I would want to read? So I thought I'd give like a taste for like what the writing is like in this book. 'Cause I actually think it's very approachable. I will note that there is no quotation marks, so there's a little bit of Cormac McCarthy going on. We're breaking some grammar rules. We're choosing to give things a little more stream of consciousness, I would argue. But here's a section that I think is illustrative. You light a fire early in your girlhood. You stoke it and tend it. You protect it at all costs. You don't let it rage into a mountain of light because it's not becoming of a girl. You keep it secret. You let it burn. You look into the eyes of other girls and see their fires flickering there, offer conspiratorial nods, never speak aloud of a near unbearable heat, a growing conflagration. You tend the flame because if you don't, you're stuck, in the cold, on your own, doomed to seasonal layers, doomed to practicality, doomed to this is just the way things are, doomed to settling and understanding and reasoning and agreeing and seeing in another way, and seeing it his way, and seeing it from all the other ways but your own. So yeah, it gets it's a little like kind of like it's like a thought, right? Like we feel like we're in the mind of this character, and it's presented in that way. Cormac McCarthy also loved to do the and not having comments, so commas. So I was a little bit evoking that, and I love Cormac McCarthy's prose. So
Yeah.
I was quite taken with that and the way this was written, but in a way very approachable still. Like there's nothing in there that's going to completely throw you off. I think it's easy to follow the lines of thought here.
And I will say the audiobook, because it's like listening to someone's stream of thought.
Yeah.
Into insanity. It's so good.
So good. I started reading this we had like a readathon recently with the book club at our friend Jake and Court's house. I read a good chunk of it there, but then I ended up switching to the audiobook to finish it out. And it was cool getting both experiences of like reading it and appreciating the way it looks on the page and the way that there's a lot of choices being made that does feel very avant-garde in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then hearing it and how natural it sounds. I thought it was really powerful and also just well performed. So definitely recommend this audiobook.
I listened to it the first time, and then because I have like a pretty harsh commute to work, so I listened to it. But I read it this last time, and both evoke so much dread in different ways. When you're listening to it versus when you're reading it, it's just like, I think that might be where the horror genre comes for me. Is like I'm scared for what you're gonna do.
And horror is like one of your main genres, right? Like I feel like you read a lot of horror.
I love horror. Horror. Yes. The worse, the better.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's move into talking about Rachel Yoder as a person, and then we'll get into our full spoiler talk, and we can get into specifics of what actually happens in this book. She is a pretty young, new author. From what I was able to find, Rachel Yoder is the author of Nightbitch, which was her debut novel. It was named the Best Book of the Year by Esquire and Vulture and recognized as a finalist for the PEN/Hemingway Award for Debut Fiction, the finalist for the VCU Cabell First Novelist Award, and on the shortlist for the McKitterick Prize. Her stories and essays have appeared in publications such as Harper's, the New York Times, the Paris Review, the Southern Review, and the Sun. She's also one of the founding editors of Draft, the Journal of Progress. As far as her background, she grew up in an intentional Mennonite community in the Appalachian foothills of eastern Ohio before attending the University of Iowa, the nonfiction program specifically, and earning an MFA from the University of Arizona. She also has an undergraduate degree from Georgetown University. So this reminded me very much of the literary fiction I read in college, so I wasn't surprised to see she went to school in Iowa, which is a very famous university for literary fiction. But then, I got her MFA at the University of Arizona. But I thought that was really interesting to hear about this Mennonite community that she grew up in. I didn't hear her talk much about it. One of the interviews, she kind of just talked about like what sounded like a fairly idyllic life that she remembers growing up. But from what I can see, I don't know a ton about it, but it seems like they're like kind of like the Amish. It depends on like the particular sect, I guess, and like how much they practice. But sometimes they wear very traditional clothing. And eschew some of the like modern life for a more like agrarian life, I guess. So I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting detail. I don't know how much she subscribes to that today. It doesn't seem like she does, But did you see any more? Because you said you watched some interviews with her, Shayna. Did you see anything about that?
She didn't dive deep into being a Mennonite per se, but
Yeah.
I think what shocked me is kind of like she talks about this voice that she accidentally fell upon while writing this book, and how it wasn't like a voice that she like knew, like it wasn't her, like it was like this thing that came from her. Do you know what I mean? And it was like all of this anger and aggression that it was like shocking for her to find on page. I don't think this is a spoiler. There's
we're getting close to spoilers.
There's a scene early on, I think one of you already mentioned it, where with breastfeeding at work. That was actually supposed to be a short story because she I think in the beginning of her writing, she just wanted to do short stories. And so the breastfeeding part about feeling like an animal, having to hide away and like do this like very like natural thing, she felt very just like bizarre and wrong, right? But because you have a separate room, and like you pass the hallway where the other woman is, and it's all scheduled, and like it's very clean, but it's all very like you're hiding away, right? But that was originally supposed to be a short story, and I thought that was interesting. And she said that as she kept writing the story, the anger kept coming and coming. And I don't know, like her juxtaposition of talking about this like really peaceful, nice childhood to creating this angry voice was always, it surprised me.
And it's funny to hear her say, I don't, it wasn't me, but it's like, it kind of is you. I think clearly this was in there. I think that, you don't just come up with a voice like this if you weren't at least somewhat grappling with some of these things and some of these thoughts. And speaking of specifically Nightbitch, she said that it came from a joke between her and her husband that she would become feral at night. And she would like sometimes growl and stuff when he would go to talk to her. And so there came this joke about her being the Nightbitch, and like she decided to make it into the character of the book and like make it literal for this book.
Wow, that's cool.
So relatable, honestly.
Right? Like, yeah. Don't
bother me while I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah. Mine's the morning. I'm a total grumpy person in the morning until I've had coffee. Like, it's such a stereotype, but that is totally true. I'm basically half dead in the morning. Okay, so another thing she said I thought was interesting. She said, often in the body horror trope, this is in an essay, by the way, which I'll link in the show notes, that she wrote, I think for LitHub. She said, often in the body horror trope, the body is framed as a locus of betrayal, and its messages as grotesque, horrifying, and to be feared. Nightbitch, though, challenges these conventions, positing instead, what if we listen to the body? What if the body's messages, however horrific, are our salvation rather than our doom? What if the body is articulating the message we most need to hear? So yeah, that's the whole essay was good. So I'll post that in the show notes. Very cool. And it's actually the whole thing is talking about her treating writing as this somatic practice. It almost sounds like it's therapeutic for her, which I found really interesting as a writer. So I'll definitely check that out if that sounds cool to you.
I love that.
So the only other thing I saw was that when she wrote this book, she hadn't been writing for about 2 years. So she'd been going through sort of a dry spell. And then she said she wrote it in part due to the anger she felt after becoming a mother and the resultant changes to her personal and professional life. Also, I'm sure contributing to her not writing for 2 years was becoming a mother. She wrote the novel free of concerns about its strangeness, she said, because she wrote it for herself. So we love that. And I would say that I definitely found this book to be fearless in some ways, that like some bold choices are made, which we'll get
totally into. And I love a weird story. I love what others might find weird.
I want to make one comment about body horror and like that interview or the thing that you read. I think my favorite genre or subgenre of horror is body horror, and that is included in film and in books, literature. For me, though, and this is a very umbrella statement I'm about to make, but I find that when men or like cis straight men write about body horror, it is through this like fetishization of controlling someone else's body. And it's like, it's not my favorite. But when you see body horror in trans, queer, or femme literature, a lot of times it's this acceptance of self through transformation that is horrific. And there's something about that is like reclaiming of the genre where you're like, no, I'm changing and this is me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've encountered so many women and trans authors of body horror who that's like their primary genre. So that totally tracks with I think some of the most interesting work in that space is being done by those kind of marginalized authors. So totally tracks with what I've seen, and I'm having read a bunch of that kind of stuff. I totally agree. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I haven't read enough by cis men. I'm sure there is some that maybe I'm just not thinking of.
Shayna also said film too, so like your Cronenbergs and things
Cronenberg?
like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love Cronenberg. Keep him out of this. Keep him out of this.
Yeah, I immediately thought of The Fly, which we covered. I'm like, what body horror have we covered? I'm like running through my head. But yeah, I think that totally tracks. And at the very least, if you're gonna do body horror well, you should be thinking along these lines. Like, what is the purpose of the horror? What are we talking about with the body? What themes are you trying to convey? And yeah, if it's just about domination or something, then maybe go another route or reconsider.
Agreed.
Okay, so let's talk about the book itself. Let's move into some summary here. So, Nightbitch follows a full-time, stay-at-home caretaker to a 2-year-old in a Midwestern town through an extraordinary transformation as she navigates internal conflicts about motherhood. Known as Nightbitch, the mother begins to experience a metamorphosis while managing domestic life, such as a dense patch of hair on the back of her neck. In the mirror, her canine suddenly looks sharper than she remembers. Her husband, who travels for work 5 days a week, casually dismisses her fears from faraway hotel rooms. All right, so this is just kind of the setup for what we're talking about here. We've already discussed this a little bit. Do anything here that we want to touch on before we move on in the plot?
I mean, I think we've talked about it a little bit, but just I've heard from people that have, given birth, the transformation and some of like the fear. And, we've already kind of touched on like some of the werewolf aspects. And I think in werewolf stories, often the transformation is like a fear. They have a fear of transforming and a fear of that change. And I think like in relating women and like bodies and like the changes that may or may not happen, I felt like that was like a powerful sort of like connection to make there. I saw like kind of where she was heading with it, but then she continued to surprise me, the author, rather than going like werewolf route. It was like a slow transformation, a very slow, gradual thing that she was sort of in denial of at times, but then also like leaning into. And I loved the ambiguity for us as the audience of being like, is this all kind of metaphor for somebody who's kind of going insane because of the routine of their life, or is it just actually happening? And there's some, I love the addition of that book that we'll get to, and like some of the supernatural sort of things she's digging into.
I noticed early on she name drops the yellow wallpaper as a story that she is even thinking about. And I think that's like a famous example where a woman is like maybe going mad and starts to see a woman in the wallpaper, and maybe it's her, and it's unclear whether or not it actually is her, and we get in this kind of ambiguous space. So I love that it's kind of like a little acknowledgement in a meta way to like another story that this is maybe in the same vein of. But also I feel like we're gonna go even further. We're gonna push even further. But yeah, I totally agree, and I love to see like it did read to me like deliberately designed to go, well, that's pretty weird, but also it could just be a normal thing. Like this could just happen to you. Like bodies are strange; they do weird things. Yeah, it could happen.
Well, one of the questions that I had in curiosities throughout reading, when you're like, is this her brain? Is this what postpartum's like? Mm-hmm. Dear Lord, the horrors.
Yeah.
Oh God. So like, is it postpartum? Like, is that what the big reveal is going to be? Is it menopause? Like what part of this, like, where does the transformation end? Like, or is she turning into a dog? Which I would fully accept.
Yeah. So you mentioned it a little bit, James. So let's talk about it. There's this woman's book that she encounters. It is called Wanda White's A Field Guide to Magical Women, a Mythical Ethnography. And she finds this book and starts reading it, and she notices that no matter where she opens it, she finds a passage that seems to be like commenting on something that she is currently going through, or of particular interest to something she's been thinking about. And so she's like, oh, I have this like kind of magical connection to this book. And I immediately thought like, okay, so this book isn't real. this book is you. But like, again, we're operating in a sort of ambiguous space. I think my suspicion is still that the book isn't real, but who knows? This is all kind of an ambiguous story anyway. But I love the way this book operated throughout. I read a review that was like hating on the fact that this book exists and like this whole plot line, but I thought it was great. It was a way to externalize, and she was like seeking a mentor figure. That to me, it was kind of clear that she was lacking from her own mother, and like she has this complicated relationship with her mother, and like wishes she got more from her. But then I think as the book progresses, finds an actual sympathy for her mother. But yeah, I love that how Wanda White ends up becoming that. But it's interesting because she's so distant and she doesn't respond to any of her emails. And so in another way, she's still this inaccessible mentor figure. Yeah, I don't know. Also, WW kind of stands for white woman, so I don't know if that was on purpose or not.
Well, she's kind of like a beacon to her own reality, right? She's like, oh, there's maybe a community out there for me that I can relate to. That's like what her maybe drive or hope is. Because you see these instances or these like scenarios where she's trying to connect to people she used to connect with, her art community, her old friends that are all in different places, and she's lacking, right? Or not that she's lacking, but she's finding it very difficult to connect with them. And you see those in different scenes, right?
Yeah. I love that scene where she reconnects with her art friends. It was powerful because it also is like, I mean, especially the stuff with the mommies, which we're about to get to. How much of this comes from other women, I think, is really noticeable, right? And whether you could say like it's because they've bought into this system, but also like people not knowing how to engage with someone who is a mother now. It's like the way our society sort of sets them aside, makes them invisible. And those friends, the way they just kind of cut her out of the conversation, assume she has nothing interesting to add or no interesting thoughts, and is no longer really an artist. And like that was so powerful and cutting. I really liked that scene as you know, terrible as it was.
Painful.
Yeah.
So painful.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like a microscope of like the worst cases of every scenario, right?
Right.
Like you're like, here's all of the people that would think that at a table together at dinner.
Yeah. I do love the scene eventually ends though in like just her
she like flips the table or something, right?
Yeah,
and
like
she freaks out.
Yeah, she loses.
And I love that ending for this story.
Yeah.
We
were should talking do about that more.
Right, yeah. Just let it out. Especially if you're being like belittled like that, you know, like that in that scenario, we as the audience are on the side of this character and we're like, yeah, flip the table, like let's get feral. We were talking about the book, and I thought like specifically the letters that the main character was writing to Wanda White, it was such a cool device for the author to kind of give a window into some of what she may have been doing with this book, like the way that she was some of the philosophy and the talk of art and motherhood and the society and all this other stuff. I loved like that. To me felt like Rachel Yoder specifically taking the medium of like the written word and like imbuing it into these letters and saying this is some of my messaging, and how like you know, artists and authors love to do that kind of thing, right? Is like use that medium to it's usually a big clue, and I felt like often I was like, okay, I'm like putting the pieces together along with these letters, and also just that spiral and that desperation for that connection that we could see through the main character being like, Wanda White, like I'm sending you an email every day, I need you.
I kept thinking we were going to get a reveal that she was going to write this book, or literally the book we're reading, and that was going to be kind of the end, as like as her artistic expression of self, she was going to write the novel. But then at some point I kind of hoped that also wasn't the case, because that felt a little too kind of clever or a little too cute, like, and I like that we didn't end up going there as we move into spoilers. We don't end up going there, so I'm glad it didn't. But like you could have gone that way, right? Like you could almost see it. But I think she's a performance artist, and so I think that's the key there. She ends up going into performance art, which such an interesting space. It's not something that I like honestly engage with much, but I loved hearing about it. It's such a cool, interesting idea, and like the example she gives of people's extreme performance art where they're getting surgery to like look like their partner. There was that couple that looked like each other. There's like people who are just dramatically changing their lives, like giving birth in like a storefront or something. Like she talks about someone who actually did that, like after she had the thought of doing it. And like the world of performance art is something I am definitely a little afraid of, but also fascinated by.
I thought it was so interesting that she was saying like she decided not to do it for her first, but if she was to have another, like that was the plan.
That's
like
that's a baby 2 idea.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a commitment to your art right there.
Do we know if any of the art she mentions is real
I don't
scenarios?
know. Yeah,
like
that's
I was
a good
trying
question.
to. I was thinking. As I was reading it, I was like, oh, she's gonna mention like is it Mariana Abramovich? Who's like a very, very famous from like the 70s performance artist. She did Google her later. Link her in the chat.
All right. What did she do? Maybe I have heard of her. I just didn't remember the name because I forget names.
So
all the
okay,
time.
one notable thing that she did was she had like she was in a room and there was a table of things and people could do whatever they wanted to her.
Oh, I did
like
hear about this.
Like the extent that people like went to hurt her got to the point where they had to stop it. And so they're like stapling things. It's pretty bad. They put like a crown of roses. Like it was pretty bad. Another thing, the first thing that came to my head, that's the most notable, but the first thing that came to my head was it was like an interactive art piece with her and her partner at the time. And she's holding an arrow at him, just like launched, and it's touching him. And they stood like that for like ever. Mm-hmm. And then it's black and white, so it's like old. Don't tell my mom I said that. And then most recently, or like in the last 10 years, when they broke up, this couple, Abramovich and her partner at the time, they did this interactive thing where they started at each end of the Great Wall of China and walked to each other and broke up. And that was like how it ended.
Wow.
That's hard.
But I thought as I'm reading it, I was like, oh, she's definitely going to like name drop one of these.
Yeah.
And she didn't. And I never looked to see if those other ones were real examples. I don't know.
I wanted to comment on like I hate the like cruelty that we can see in humanity when these kinds of like art installations are going on and people just do the worst, most heinous shit. And you're like, what is wrong with, like, I understand that like maybe that's what the artist wants to an extent, like they want to provoke some sort of reaction, but man, that's crazy stuff. Like I remember, I'd
have to look into that one because I also like I imagine there's probably plenty of people who didn't do awful shit, but like
I'm sure
it's the awful shit that makes the headline, and like that's the thing we remember, and that's the reason it had to get stopped. So all it takes is a few people, right? And that's kind of like the internet in a microcosm, right? Like,
kind of, but it's like you're doing it in public when people can see you in the physical space.
It's
like,
awful. I don't know why people do it, but it's like a weird human thing that does seem to happen. But yeah, all right. So let's move on then, I think, and talk a little bit about what happens in the middle of this book. So as the mother's symptoms intensify and her temptation to give in to her new dog impulses peak, she struggles to keep her alter canine identity secret. Seeking a cure at the library, she discovers the mysterious academic tome which becomes her Bible, a field guide to magical women, a mythical ethnography, and meets a group of mommies involved in a multi-level marketing scheme who may also be more than what they seem. And I love this group of women. It's such an interesting way to explore this because they're all named Jen, apparently, which I find hilarious. Yep. It's like one of the only names we get. The main one, she's like, I'm Jen, and this is Jen, and that's Jen, and that's Jen. Like, they're all just Jen. And that's one of those situations where things are getting a little weird, and you're like, is this our reality or not? But she lives in a literal castle that is hilarious. That like she's like, as soon as I found out this was a thing, I wanted it. And so they've made this castle, but it's also later referred to as a McMansion. So it's like you can imagine this kind of like gross castle-like house seems pretty awful. And then, they have this like, this is something that like I feel like mothers groups have a reputation for, getting drawn into these multi-level marketing schemes. And like, I love the way it approached it because it's at both like, she really shows the reason why it's appealing and how they get taken in, but then just also how awful it is. And like, the getting together and having a party and drinking wine and the social element of it. And you can see how that's very appealing to people, especially people who are starved for social connection. I found this whole thing fascinating. And then we can get into the idea that like 3 of them are also maybe dogs that she encounters when she's in her dog mode.
I feel
Thoughts
like
on the mommies?
Thoughts on the gens.
Yeah, on the
I'm
gens.
always thinking about those gens. I feel like that's such a prime example of like yearning for connection. Like truly just like this is like we have one thing in common. Our schedules are probably similar. How can we get drunk and be together? Because that's like part of it, right? Is there like the relationship.
At first she has like disdain for them too. And I love that how that kind of evolves because at first she's like the worst thing I can imagine is
being a part of
befriending these people because we're all moms. Like that just sounds terrible, which I get.
Because she's And she's also grappling with her own identity, right? She had this like career and she's an artist and now she is a mom. And she's like, but I'm not a mom, like they're a mom. Well, what does that mean? Like really when we explore it, because they probably all have their own thing that makes their identity too. But that's like her own projection, which I love to see in a book. Like this like very clear projection of your own fear of what your identity is.
I love the MLM stuff too, because like all of us, I assume, have known someone who like unexpectedly approached you. We're like, hey, you got to be a part of this amazing thing. And it's like the most off-putting thing for me. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm immediately out. It's really frustrating. And I like, it is this thing where like
they're
you
selling
lose
herbs,
respect.
by the way, like very vague,
Yeah.
like these herbs that they're going to like solve all your problems. I don't know. I love the way it was so like vague, but yet totally made sense. Just peddling herbs.
Well, it's caricatures, right?
Right,
They're
right.
like
It's
They're
wellness
all
stuff.
Jen.
They're all Jen, yeah.
It's hard to not like lose respect for people in those scenarios some of the time, but then like everyone, as we're saying, like everyone has their own individual story. They all have a reason to be there. And I think it's notable that when our main character goes to one, she eventually like she tells her husband like, yeah, I bought in because I want to see how crazy these people are, like kind of thing. And you're like, well, it's like, are you just saying that, or did you get swept up in the moment and you're actually like wanting to be a part of it? So yeah, it engages with it in an interesting way.
Well, and honestly, a lot of people who do get swept up in that, their reason probably just is the social aspect of it, of like, I enjoyed it, I had a good time, I was hosted at someone's house and they gave me wine. So at a certain point, you're not going to want to be like, and in fact, no, I'm not going to buy into this thing. Like, there's a lot of pressure on you in that moment, I think. I think it's
Also,
understandable people get into it.
How is our purpose as humans tied to like what money we bring in?
Oh yeah, because there's this appeal of being your own businesswoman who's going to bring in money. Yeah.
And there's a hierarchy that you're now building that you might not have at home.
Yeah.
Because there's a different established hierarchy there.
Mm-hmm. And it's preying on that, right? It's preying on the idea that you want, that you're desperate to be bringing in some money and kind of have like a side hustle, which is a very American, I think, idea, but it totally makes sense.
That's what feels predatory about it, for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk. I want to dive in a little more to them, because like the first time we meet them, she's described the prime Jen Prime. She's blonde. She's kind of perfect. She's like well put together. She's kind of like the prototypical like what everyone aspires to be mom, right? And that was kind of the thing that like Nightbitch hates about her. She's like, I can't stand this woman. And then like later on in one of her like nightly transformations, where she is like encountering this group of dogs. There are these 3 dogs, and one of them is a golden retriever and gives strong Jen energy. Like basically it's kind of strongly implied is at least very like Jen, or maybe is Jen.
Smells of strawberries.
Yeah, has strong
like
scent to
main
her.
thing, yeah.
She represents like an interesting thing, right? Because that ties into the idea of the goal of wanting to be like a dog, which in the sense of like wanting to just enjoy being animalistic, enjoy the moment, just like chase an animal, like kill a thing, like be violent, don't care about how you look, but also like just enjoy like rolling around in the dirt with your offspring, like enjoy playing fetch, enjoy the day, enjoy the weather, like living in the moment. So there's like an appeal to it, but also I love that it's immediately tied to someone who we look at and go, oh, we don't want to be like this. And how could they also be it? Like, how can she also be a dog? So it shows that like it's not as simple as that, right? Like there's something else that needs to happen. It's not just giving in to your animalistic urges, but there's something else, or there's something beyond that. I think that she's in pursuit of. And I don't know. I felt like the mommies kind of represented that to me too, and I love how their relationship evolves over time as we continue to explore that.
I would argue that adding the Jens as dogs in was like her acceptance of them. Was like, oh, they're not just Jens. They're more not that they're better, but they're animals like me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's the reason she wants it to be true, because she doesn't know for sure. She's like, she keeps like trying to talk to them and be like, oh, it's okay. We're all a little different. Sometimes we get up to things. What do you get up to? Like, I think she wants them to disclose that they are actually dogs too. Like because she wants, I think I agree. Like she wants to connect to them in this way, but she doesn't know if she can, because she still at some point is like, am I making this all up?
One of the big moments with that, all the other dogs that she runs into, the first time that she sees them and the way that they are like mothering towards her child and like put the paw on him and like kind of put him to nap. And I was thinking, like, after it was revealed that maybe they were one and the same, is like this community of other mothers who would be just as loving towards your child, and if you can share the load kind of throughout, the whole it takes a village kind of thing. Like that's kind of some of the messaging I was getting from that.
Well, that ties into the book, right? Because in the book, it keeps being examples of like communities of magical women, like communities of magical mothers. Like they bound together, and they're like in Siberia or in Russia or something. And there's these bird women, and like there's all these different examples of these magical women. But it's notable. It's not usually like a single like case. It's like a group of them who work together. So I think that it betrays a sort of yearning from Nightbitch herself, and wanting some sort of community like this and not to be alone.
That's like her acceptance of it over time.
Yeah. So around this time, in what I thought was probably the boldest decision on the part of the author, we get the murder of a cat.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something different.
No, I think this is going to be something. If you murder a pet in a vicious and kind of unforgivable way in a book, you're going to watch your Goodreads score tank. People are going to hate that. And I guarantee that it is a contributing factor to this book sitting at I think it was like a 3.4 or something when I looked it up. Like it is a very divisive book. And some people won't even admit that this is the reason. But if you murder a pet, it's going to be tough. And especially the way this plays out, right? Like she just does it kind of like on accident, but then she just goes for it. And like, it's brutal. It's bloody. It's like, I feel so bad for this cat. This cat didn't do anything to deserve this. And then it's gross. I don't know. There's a lot that goes on here. And I thought, like, this is the thing that I admire her for including, because this is the kind of thing that we also, I think, as human owners of dogs, try and pretend like doesn't exist in our dogs and our animals, right? Like that they're not capable of this kind of thing. And the truth is, many of them are, if not most animals are. And like, they don't think about it in the same way we do. And like, she is now having to wrestle with like, plus her son walks in and sees her covered in blood, and there's intestines on the ground and like all kinds of gross stuff. And it's like
he tries to, and he's like, "Can we eat that?"
Yeah, he wants to eat it because he's following her footsteps.
Well, I feel like we skipped a part, which is
maybe,
the relationship with the son.
Yeah.
Because
let's talk about it.
the escalation to me is like she's got all the stuff happening to her body, and we don't know what's happening. And then she meets the gens, and then the dog's outside, and she's running with them, right? And then she's like she's like 10 toes down committing to the bit where she's taking her son to the grocery store. He's wearing a collar.
Yeah,
he has a
leash. He's into it. He loves it.
He has a dog bed. There is no one at home. That to me was so disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
The leash, the collar, the dog bowl, the dog bed, the son behaving, the raw meat. There was raw meat eating.
Yep.
That was so disturbing. That escalation, then the cat happens.
Leads to the cat, yeah.
Leads to the cat and the son being like, we gonna eat it?
That's when she's like, oh, maybe I've gone too far. She's a little worried about what she's done to him. And then she also, there's a moment where she's worried about hurting him. She's like, is this possible? But then she reads a chapter in the book that basically says that these magical mothers never harm their own young, so she feels better after she reads that. Which again, we don't know if that book is even real. So interesting note there. But yeah, what did you think of that part, James? Like, I'm curious. The death of the cat, the relationship with the son too, even leading up to that.
At first, I was like, again, I'm in for a parent engaging with a child in a playful way, right? I'm like, yeah, play dogs with your kids. Like, I don't want to be embarrassed to do that kind of thing. I want to run around the playground and bark and stuff, and people are going to think that I'm weird, but whatever. Like, if it's engaging and creative for your kid, that's awesome. And I felt like it was going to continue down that path. And then it got darker and darker. And wasn't there a cage involved too? Like, outside of even just like a dog bed, but like a crate.
Kennel. Yeah. He sleeps in a kennel at night. I don't think it's like locked or anything.
No. I think it specifically said, "Do you want to open or close?" And
I think he brings in stuff to like make it comfortable. I don't know. I'm kind of fine with it.
But again, it's so wild because she keeps being like, Oh, she's telling her husband he sleeps so well in there. It's like a miracle that he will go to sleep in there, and like that's bizarre. Like that's I don't know. That
It
seems
is
a little,
probably not advisable, I would assume.
Yeah.
But
My heart is racing just thinking about those scenes again. Like, just like, it's just like, not like, a judgment-free zone. Raise your kids however you want to. But like the raw meat, the collar, the leash, the kennel. I remember like just being like, oh, we're full steam ahead. Things are going bad. Heart racing.
And eventually the cat murder, I did not see. I mean, they kept joking about it, right? And like that's like obviously the
she kept
completion
talking
of
about
the
how much she
joke
hates
about,
the
I'm
cat.
gonna murder you. I'm gonna do this and that. And the husband is like, oh, this is a funny joke that's going on between us. And they say the like outline. They have an interesting relationship because she talks about like the folder early on about like his like
we
internet.
skipped over the folder.
Yeah,
Folder's
he's
a
got
weird
like a
part.
really like that was something that she felt was like interesting about
She
him.
yeah,
Because-
that's one of the things she
yeah.
loved about her husband. Do you remember the folder?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how endearing that would be to me. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah,
It seemed pretty weird, but I guess if you like it, it's okay.
it seemed like it was some of the darkest stuff on the internet.
She's an artist, right?
Yeah,
and she's
that
like,
plays
she's
into
the
the
type.
yeah.
Yeah, and if she's the
He's the one who showed me the women peeing on the octopus or whatever it was, and I'm like, yeah, great.
Yeah,
so
I think
endearing.
Yeah.
I think it's also that he is not the type to do that. Like she was surprised that he had that layer to him also, right? Because he seems like a really straight edge like engineer type for the most part, or I forget what he does, but
He plays video games. I think
yeah,
he is
and
an
that-
engineer or something, or he works for a
Yeah.
tech company of some kind.
But then it's revealed that he's got this like weird folder, and he's like, I don't know, he's like thinks it's cool and shows it to her, and she finds it endearing. And yeah, I guess there you can see some layers of like what I mean into her performance art and some of the stuff that we get
Exactly.
into. Like she's like that's her space. Like that's what she finds intriguing.
The transformation when we reveal that this is something she likes, because that
Yeah.
says something about her as a person, right? And like
Yeah.
going to extreme places and being okay with it.
Also, regarding the cat, that was his cat.
Yeah.
Like, that was his beloved cat. Like, that's, like, clear. It's like, that was his cat. And so you're...
It seemed like he took it surprisingly well, too. I thought this was going to be more of a thing. But
Her lie
Her
is
lie about
so,
it is so weird.
outlandish, by the way.
she's like, I
Super
dropped a pan full of apples and then also a knife. And I'm like, how does this even work? Like, knocked out and probably dead from the pan, but then also a knife dropped on.
And she's like, I don't think he felt anything.
Also, I'm going to say something a little weird. I would never harm an animal or a cat. I am team dog. But she cuts
Like, guts
through.
it.
She guts it.
She guts
How
it.
does that happen on accident? Like, that's not how a dog would kill a cat. Like, a dog would, like, do the shaking thing, right? Like,
Well, and she also, I think, does that. After she
It
does
was
it, she
extended,
she puts it in her mouth and shakes it.
But that's
Keeps ripping it apart. Yeah.
yeah. But she doesn't tell the husband about that.
right. But that's not how it gets killed. Not that he's, like,
Right.
checking to see how it died. I don't know. But I'm like,
yeah, I think they had buried it and she was essentially lying about it.
it's like she had to at that point.
Yeah.
It's definitely a scene that's gonna. Yeah, it's a scene that's gonna stick with me from this story, and it was like longer than I was expecting. It like continued on and became more grotesque, and then the sun coming in was such a reveal that I was like, all right, we're like off the deep end now. I want to know where this is gonna end.
We get other things like this, but I agree. This is the one that stands out to me because this is what pushed this book into that space of transgressive, norm defying,
Yep.
wants to grab you and make you feel uncomfortable kind of art. And like I do like I don't necessarily want to read books like this all the time. It's not necessarily the space I'm the most comfortable in, but like I do love engaging with this stuff from time to time. And I think one of the appeals of it is that it will shock you. It will go somewhere you're not expecting and push you into a place where you're not comfortable. And I think when you get knocked off kilter that way, like now all of a sudden you become more open as you sort of like tentatively read on. You're more open now to what's happening, I guess, in a way. I think some readers are, and like those are the readers I think she's trying to appeal to.
I will also say, like, with femme rage and lit fic that's, like, leaning horror, sometimes it doesn't go as far as I want it to. Like, I'm like, okay, you said this was going to be horror. This is just, like, a dipping a toe in. The cat scene took me over the threshold, and I actually needed it. I needed her to go that far, or else it wasn't going to hit me where I wanted to be hit.
I agree. Because, like, if you don't have that scene, this book is a little too happy. It's a little too, like, embracing our femme rage, but, like, it doesn't do anything that's particularly scary. that's the moment where we're all like, I don't know about this. I don't know about her in this moment. And yeah, it's like it needed something like this. So like, even though I was I was off put by this whole scene quite a bit, I agree. I think this is necessary for this book to work. And also, I think it's going to be the thing that turns a ton of people off to this book. So it's it. But I love that she's willing to go there. Like that. This is a book she wrote for herself. This is a book that she, I think, is writing in a tradition where she understands the need to be a bit transgressive, and she leans into it. All right, let's get into the final chunk here, and then we can wrap all our thoughts. She decides to stage a performance piece that embodies her animalistic motherhood, refusing to smooth over its violence. She reclaims her lost artist identity by merging it with her new feral one. The novel ends with her empowered, still a mother, still an artist, and still Nightbitch. All right, so that's very high level view, but let's like get down in the weeds a little bit and talk about what actually happened. So like, yeah, she kind of like reclaims this group of women, right? Like she hosts this first gathering where she has them all come out to her house. I think it's her house, and she's got Jen is sort of orchestrating the whole thing. And I love that Jen has started to dress like her and behave like her. As I think Jen recognizes there's something there that I admire. And again, like I love that this character that we could have easily written off as being uninteresting and that we don't care about actually becomes like one of her key, like, friends and people that she's collaborating with in some sense. I mean, she uses her like marketing background to literally promote her performances. And instead of like going, oh yeah, marketing, who cares? So I love that part of it too. But then, yeah, she hosts this party, and I love the way that was written about too, and like how people all show up and they're getting restless and they understand what's happening. And then this performance happens where she comes out and they're like, maybe it was an animal, maybe it was a werewolf, maybe it was a person. They're not really sure. No one can agree when they're talking about it later. Some people left because they were like, I don't have my rabies shot, so I have to leave. Like really funny. And then like, yeah, I think she like comes out and eats the steak, tears it apart, is like just being very animalistic. And eventually everybody is sort of off put by this and leaves. But some people kind of got it and had a positive experience, and other people didn't. And she was like, the people who connected with it are the people that this is for. And I love that to me speaks, again, once directly about this book. Like, this is the way this book was written and designed. Like, she knows when she writes this book, like, a lot of people are not going to connect with it or like it. But then some people will really love it. And that's who she's writing it for.
For me, I think her relationship with the lead, Jen, is like, a lot of times, like, I feel like you see someone that you maybe relate to too much, and it's immediate fear of like that reality. So you're like, absolutely the fuck not, dislike. Like you're your hardest critic, right? And so when you see like a version of yourself, you're like, no. And so for her to like come full circle to be like, no, that not only am I her, but she is me.
Yeah, she's like, it's someone that she is afraid she's going to become. Like that's her like worst fear, is becoming this Jen. She's like, I do not want to be this. Yeah, I agree. And I love that. I don't know, the way that relationship evolves is so fascinating. Okay, so, and then we get into the actual performance, right? So now this was kind of the like first run of it. And then we move into, it seems like multiple performances are staged. There starts becoming reviews, some positive, some negative. I love the negative reviews too about, like it just shows how, I mean, that's the world of art, right? Like no matter how good it is, there are going to be people who don't get it. There are going to be people who maybe rightfully point out some things about it that aren't effective, or that they don't think should have been done that way. That's just kind of how art is. We do this all the time in book club, right? That we talk about things we like and didn't like, and we all disagree. And I love that we started engaging with it in that space. But what we're seeing, to me, is how this Nightbitch, this animalistic, violent part of herself, has led her to be able to create something that is bringing her a connection to the artist self that predates Nightbitch, right? Like this is now the thing I always wanted, and it's through this connection that she's able to explore that. And I thought that was a really powerful sort of message behind the book too, of like embracing it and finding a path to like an artistic life that is rewarding. And she does it through a means that you probably would have never expected.
Well, and her art friends show up, right?
Yeah.
Like she invites her art friends, which I think is like I don't know, very brave, because I doubt that they believed in her. I have so much empathy for Nightbitch. Like, regardless of all the stuff, yes, the cat, like the whole thing, I'm like, I can only imagine how scary that is to invite these people who like sat across from you from dinner and were like, you're not an artist anymore, you're just a mother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I will say also though about that moment, that dinner, there's it might be just that she's interpreting it that way.
Yeah.
Because they don't actually say that. She's sort of interpreting that from their tone and how they're behaving. So like, and she might be right, and she probably is, but like, we also have to recognize she might be a little bit unreliable in the way she's reading it. And yeah, so who knows? I mean, who knows? Like, because I do think there's also probably some truth to like, if you're self-conscious about something and you're worried, like this is true all the time in the writing world. Like if you go into a space and you're just like, it's eating away at you that you don't feel like you belong there, you can start to perceive people's interactions with you as like they believe this too, even though that might not actually be the case at all, because it's quite common for everybody to kind of feel like they don't belong in these spaces. But I don't know. There's some truth to it. There are certainly assholes out there who will absolutely do that. But also, there can be a sense of like you can project that maybe a little bit if you're not careful.
Well, her own insecurity with herself and her identity is projecting that, right? Yeah. So it's like, if she was totally secure with the fact that like, yeah, I'm a mother and I took time off to not work and I'm going to work on art in a second. She was totally grabbing that and saying, no, that's me. Then I don't think any of the stuff with the artist and the dinner would matter. But because she's battling her own transformation and identity with herself, all these like horrific creatures are coming out of the woodwork, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just going to say, one of the commentaries about the art is like, there's a character, one of the artists has talked about like their art made like, I forget, like $500,000.
Oh yeah. They sold a piece for that amount.
And it was like an Instagram post or something. I think it was just like screenshots of an Instagram post. And then, so that's like that, like,
which is, I thought was notable that she was being a little dismissive of it, right? Like, yeah. It's kind of messed up to like undercut your friend if they had a successful piece,
For sure. And on top of that, like that's probably some of the jealousy and some of the what she's grappling with about not being able to feel actualized by her art.
Insecurity coming out a little bit there. Yeah.
I think there's a commentary on art here too, is like, that's a form of art. Like the screenshots of Instagram, that's a form of art. There's so many different forms of art. And this, while maybe, I don't know, strange or transgressive as for her performance art, is like also a form of art, and the way that like the commentary being made between like the sort of what you think of as like museum, going into a museum and looking at a piece of art versus like this like very feral like and also there's a commentary that I wanted to make of too about like this idea of like dogs, and they over time were domesticated by humans but still have these instincts to their more feral side, right? And I think we're seeing like domesticated women, they have that instinct to like buck against that, and like that's still there, and that like we're seeing that like come forward in her art and through her experience through the story. So yeah, I just thought I like the commentary on like domestication and then art, like the differences in art and how things can be valid and maybe they don't speak as closely to you, but they can still be I don't know, important or powerful to other people. And I think that's like also a commentary on this story. Is like, while maybe it's not for you necessarily. Yeah. I thought this is, again, I think this is an incredible story. And I don't think, we talked about like the Goodreads. I know you're kind of joking like about like the Goodreads score. I don't think this is an author that's writing this story that cares about a Goodreads score.
Yeah, and she shouldn't. No. It's just a thing I know. Like sometimes I encounter these. I think it's interesting when I see, like, I love reading a book that is like that sometimes, because I think often people wrongly assume when they see a score like that means the book is poorly written,
right,
or poorly executed. When what sometimes happens is a book is brilliantly executed, brilliantly written, and has something about it that upsets people. And some people can't handle that. And that turns into an anger or a dislike. And sometimes those are some of the best books. Like some of my favorite novels, Goodreads scores are not super high because they do exactly that.
This kind of leads to like the future conversation, but something I found out and read about today that I thought was interesting is she's a debut author, comes from Mennonite background, like went to college, you said the whole thing.
Yeah.
When she got signed to publish the book, they already had the screenwrite deal. That blows my mind that they were like, we haven't even printed it and published it yet. You're getting a fucking movie.
So I've heard about this happening a few times lately. This is apparently a new trend in Hollywood. I don't know. Maybe this is happening some in the past, but like it's a new thing where like these movie studios are looking for titles that are going to make movies that they want to do, and they want to pounce on it early as possible before anybody else gets a chance. They're able to avoid having to go to auction over this. They can make an offer to an author for a book that's not even out yet. The book hasn't even been published yet, and yet now all of a sudden has a movie deal. So it's kind of one of those things where they're taking a big risk, but also they're potentially saving themselves money because it's not a known quantity yet, and therefore there's not other people who want it, and they can kind of get in there first and make an offer.
When we were at Worldcon, there was a producer, I think on one of Luke's panels, that was talking about some of this. And he was saying, like, it's becoming like an arms race to get to manuscript. So it's like, there's almost like, I don't know for sure, but like backdoor deals as far as like people being able to get access to manuscripts before anybody else is. And it's this whole like race to try to see who's got the next big thing.
Well, you can see that it could be beneficial for an agent to try and get it in the hands of someone if they think they might like it as early as possible, because you can get these kind of deals, and it's it's like, yeah, you might be losing out money on some sort of like future bidding war, but if you can publish a book that has already been announced is going to get a major movie adaptation, that is a huge boost to your sales. So it's also beneficial in that sense of like all of a sudden now there's more eyes on this book than there would have been.
It does blow my mind that somebody read it and was like, this needs a movie.
Yeah, so like, I think she talked about that in one of the interviews I saw, and I didn't want to get too far into it because we're going to do the movie next week. Sure. But she was like saying, like, I don't know how this movie exists. Like, I don't know. And she said she worked with like a team of like 6 women who were like producing and writing and making this movie, and they were all like, I don't know how this movie's getting made, but we're doing it. And like, I think that's awesome. There's so much to talk about in this story, and I think especially like thematically, there's like so much that I feel like we're in some sense just scratching the surface of, and we can like continue to get into. So I love that this is one we're going to come back to next week for the movie, because I think that'll give us another shot at it, and we can look at the way that it's interpreted by a new artist who comes in, the filmmaker, but then also like it can sometimes like show us certain things about the original. And that's one of the things I love about doing this podcast is like you kind of get a new view of that original piece when you see the new interpretation too. So this has been super fun. So thanks for coming on, Shayna.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we finally made it work. I appreciate your patience.
Yeah, no worries.
I can't wait to have you back next week. I'm super excited after reading this story. I'm super excited to see what the filmmakers cooked up with this one. And like Amy Adams, I'm excited to see her performance.
We love Amy Adams on this podcast.
We love Amy Adams.
Very excited. So where can people find you if they want to follow you online? I know you do TikTok, Instagram, that kind of stuff. What's your handle?
Baddie Coda.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes so people can click on it.
Yes, Instagram and TikTok.
It's like you do a lot of book content on there, right?
Yeah, I do mostly like joking around stuff, but I like to like share my reviews of stuff I'm reading, things I like.
It's very fun. I highly recommend you follow Shayna on all of the places that we will link below. All right, that's going to be it for this week. Thank you so much, Shayna, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome, thank you.
So if you like this episode, please let us know in the form of a rating and review on whatever app you chose to listen on. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment and let us know your thoughts on our analysis. If you've read this book, I'd love to hear from you and what you thought of it. Always excited to hear that stuff. So also make sure to subscribe if you're on YouTube. We are over 1,000 subscribers now and continuing to grow. So help us continue to grow. It's been awesome. And thank you.
And be sure to connect with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, all of those at Ink to Film. And you can really find us anywhere. We also have a Discord where we talk about these episodes. We talk about games and movies and books and all the other things that we're doing. So if you'd like to join that, send us a message on any of those platforms.
And if you'd like to support this podcast in another way, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/inktofilm. And on there we have bonus episodes. We have one that we are going to go ahead and announce that we are going to be doing. And that is while we were at Worldcon, we met up with a bunch of former guests who have been on the podcast over the years. Caught up with them, find out what they've been up to, how their convention was going. A lot of familiar faces. So if you're someone who's been listening for a while, you're gonna definitely want to check that out. And that's going to be on Patreon pretty soon here. We just got to finish editing it together. But I'm excited to see how that one turns out.
Yeah, I mean, it should be out by the time you're listening to this. So go check that out if you wanted to check out our Patreon.
Yeah, in the future, I will be excited to see how that turned out because I haven't seen it yet. But yeah, you're right. I think by the time this episode comes out, it should be there. So we'd love to have your support on our Patreon.
And thank you to Ross Bugden for the use of our intro and outro music.
All right, that's going to be it for this week with Nightbitch the book. We are going to return next week for the film with Amy Adams. This is one I haven't seen yet, so I'm really excited to watch it and see what they did with it, man. This has been a fun one. Shayna's returning, so it'll be a delight to talk with them again. All right, until next time.
Keep adapting.